Hey, what's up, everybody? Spencer here at the Grand Mesa Lodge, and on YouTube, Summit Secrets. Stain here is here with me, and we're going to do a podcast video. And today, talking about search and rescue. What do you think, Dane?
Well, I think on this particular topic, I am not the expert, but for those who don't know, Spencer, you are a member of a couple search and rescue teams, are you not?
Yeah, I am. So in Colorado, the Grand Mesa Lodge is in Western Colorado, and I'm on a couple of, technically I'm on 3 different search and rescue teams, but I'm not really active with all of them. I'm actually not super active with any of them anymore because I'm really busy with the Grand Mesa Lodge. But anyways, let's talk a little bit. I'll explain how search and rescue works in Colorado. First off, it's different in every state. So Colorado works one way. If you're in Idaho or whatever, might work a little different in your state. In Colorado, search and rescue works under the authority of the sheriff's office. The way it works is each sheriff's office will develop individual teams, and they will have volunteers mostly that comprise these teams. And so depending on what the search and rescue mission is, they'll call up whatever team is most relevant. So I'm actually on an ATV team for Mesa County, but I'm really not. I've been on one search and rescue mission ever with them, and then a couple of training operations on the ATV team. And I'm also on the snowmobiles team, and I've been on a couple of missions with them, more with them. But if it's a rescue mission where it's on the snow, it's like in the mountains in the winter, they're going to call snowmobile guys, obviously. And they're pretty much all those guys are volunteers, so they just bring their own sleds and they come help out if there's a situation. If somebody calls 911 and there's a mission, that goes to dispatch, and then dispatch contacts the sergeant that's in charge of search and rescue, and he picks which team and sends out a page, says, hey, I'm looking for responders, and then they respond.
That could be in the middle of the night, right? You could get a call while you're in your jambies and you'd be trying to decide, oh, am I too tired to go on this?
I would say actually most of them come in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most all calls come out. It's not only in the middle of the night, but it's usually in the worst weather that you can think of. Because those 2 times, that's when people are going to have problems, Which leads us...
You have the option to accept the mission
or
not?
Yeah, you're volunteer based, and so usually what happens is a page will go out, you'll look down, and they'll be like, hey, we're looking for 6 volunteers, or we're looking for 2, or whatever, however many volunteers. And then you just text back like unavailable, or I can respond, and then they'll send a rally point or a response point, and then you go there. Sometimes what happens is you get a page and you're like, I can respond, and then they text back, 30 minutes later, and they're like, stand by or stand down. If it's a stand by, it just means that we might not send, we've got more information. That means we might not have to deploy search and rescue assets. And that way everybody that could respond can have a little bit of time. Maybe they can start making certain changes at work in order to be prepared so they can leave. So that happens.
Being that it's all volunteer, it's all on your dime too, right? So if you wanted to do it, you pay for your own truck, gas, your own equipment, all of that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of volunteer. There is also reimbursement also. I think that depends in Colorado, county by county. One time I was on a mission and I damaged my sled, and Mesa County Sheriff's Office reimbursed that. It wasn't like, a total where it's like $20,000 new sled, but there's a little bit of damage to it, and they paid for that. I know somebody else that was injured on a rescuer was injured on a search and rescue mission, and their insurance, the sheriff's office, covered that. But as far as like your fuel and gas, I think it depends. I personally have never ever submitted any reimbursements for fuel or gas or mileage or anything like that. If I go on a mission, I just go and help. So.
There's a lot of people that probably are thinking about volunteering for something like that. And I often think, okay, what are the reasons that somebody would volunteer for this? Is it just an itch you have to scratch? Or are you just major Like you love snowmobiling so much that you want to join a snowmobiling
Yeah,
search and rescue team?
yeah, it's definitely it's probably that. I mean, you've got snowmobiling teams, you've got like an ATV team, you have there's some search and rescue teams that are like underwater recovery, and so if you have an ATV and you really like it, you like to ride it, then here's an opportunity where you can go ride it. It's kind of a sense of just, I don't know, like kind of being a badass, I think, is what a lot of people think. Because it's like, oh, this I'm on search and rescue. It's like this official operation mission. You get to go out with sheriff's assets. So some of those missions, I've been on missions where they brought in helo assets. A year ago, I did do a search and rescue mission, which was an actual search mission, and they brought in a helicopter for it. And we had like 7 teams. Each team was 2 or 3 people, and it took us 3 or 4 hours to find the people. So that was an actual search. But anyways, if you're up in the mountains and you get lost or you get into a bind, it may be a little while before people come and help you. It could be a long while, and if you don't know exactly where you are, it could be a half a day. So you've got to be prepared.
The moral of the story there is do whatever you can to not get ended up on the mesa. So work on your skills, right? Have a good sled, go as a group, or go with a guided ride. I know you and your team, that you guys do guided rides all the time. So people are going in the safer areas and avoiding places where they'll get stranded or stuck or lost. What else?
A lot of people get hurt get into a bind because they've gotten hurt. You got the snowmobiling element of it, but other search and rescue missions like mountain biking, a lot of times it's injury. With snowmobiling, it's more so that you're stuck, that you're in a place where you can't get out. Your sled is stuck, you're lost, something like that. That's more so with snowmobiling, in my observation. With biking, it's usually injury. With the ATV team, when it responds to stuff, a lot of times it's like a domestic or it's a runaway. That's happened multiple times. It could be like there's this one time there was a mission where there was this couple that was out drinking, camping out on the desert, and then he just ran off because he was mad at his wife or his significant other. And then a long time goes by and she ends up calling 911, says, I'm worried about this person. We went out and searched for them all night. We searched for like 4 or 5 hours, and then we found out that he had went home. He had walked back to the freeway, hitchhiked back to Grand Junction, and he was asleep in his bed the whole time we were out searching for him out on the desert. So you get stuff like, I mean, it could be a lot of different stuff, but yeah, I mean, whatever you're doing, if you're out in the wilderness, if you're enjoying the outdoors, just, be prepared and understand that there's a certain element of like, you got to take care of yourself. Which another interesting thing is talking about like how much search and rescue cost. So in Colorado, it doesn't cost anything.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that, but that's how it works. I actually debated on whether or not I was going to tell people that on this podcast. So we'll talk about that. The problem with not charging people anything for search and rescue is because it's the theory that people will be more likely to call. And if they think that they're going to get charged for the search and rescue service, then they're less likely, and they're not going to call for frivolous situations like that lady who called and an entire team. So we sent that time that the guy was asleep in his bed, I think we had 25 they had ground there too. So they had an ATV team and they also had a ground team. They probably had 50 volunteers out in the middle of the night doing this search and rescue mission for 3 or 4 hours. All the while he's home asleep in his bed.
Man, what could the argument have been about?
I don't know, but anyways, because of that, that's one reason why people are like, oh, maybe we should charge people a little bit for search and rescue. The problem with charging people for search and rescue is that people are less likely to call. Yep. The pro is also the con. It's like catch-22. People are less likely to call. So if you have somebody that is in a real bind that actually should call search and rescue, if they hesitate for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and then they finally call, by the time they do call, it's going to be more difficult for search and rescue, because now where search and rescue could have went out maybe during the day, now we're searching at night. Maybe before they had critical injuries, but now they have like seriously critical, or before they had mild injuries and now they have life-threatening. Like maybe it went from hypothermia, like mild hypothermia, early onset hypothermia, to now it's like critical hypothermia. And so the concept, and what Colorado has decided, is that we're not going to charge anybody for search and rescue services. Now, if you get life flight, you get medical, that's different. Those are different charges, and you can't get charged for that. But as far as the actual search and rescue, in Colorado, you don't get charged for it. Anyways,
are there guys who are on the team who maybe don't have the right skill set? I mean, I know they'll train you. You said they do training, so maybe CPR training or avalanche training or other necessary things you need to be aware of. But some people maybe, would you say, aren't fit to be a member of search and rescue?
Yeah, all search and rescue teams, depending on which team it is, they're going to have certain criteria. So there's an application you fill out and they vet you. There are a lot of duties on search and rescue. So let's say you wanted to join a team, but you're not fit. They're not going to accept your application for a ground team where you go in and if you don't have any skills with climbing, you're not going to be on a climbing team. If you don't know how to ride a snowmobile, they're probably not going to put you on a snowmobile team. But there's other things that you could do, like when they're doing search and rescue missions, they might need somebody just to sit there and watch a screen and help with headquarters. There's this one time I went on a mission and they were like, I showed up and they're like, hey, can you help us at HQ? And in my mind, I was like, no, like I'm here to ride, like put me on a sled, I'll go out and find somebody. But that's not what I told them. Obviously, I was like, look, I'll do whatever you need. As it turned out, they ended up having me go out, but for a little while they were thinking about having me just sit in a sheriff's deputy truck and look at a screen. And so there are things like that you could do. So I have family in Alaska, and I heard this story. So I don't have firsthand knowledge. It's just a story that I've heard from cousins and friends in Alaska that I have. And there was an issue where there was a search and rescue, and the state didn't have the assets. So it's the state troopers there that mostly do search and rescue. And they didn't have the assets, and so they asked this local company that had a helicopter to send their helo and go pick up these guys. They knew where they were. They just had to fly out there and get them. It was definitely life-threatening. And so this private company, they took the mission. They're like, yeah, we'll go out and pick them up for you, meaning for you, the state. And quick little digression here. In America, you can't use helo for any sort of hunting expedition, period. It's a national law. So you can't, no matter what state you're in, you can't fly in a helicopter to hunt. Now people are like, what about pigs in Texas? I've seen pictures of it.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Yeah, the reason is because that's not hunting.
Oh, it's not?
It's not hunting.
Oh, it's like infestation?
Yeah, it's pest control. So what that is pest control. That's classified as pest control. They don't have tags for those. That's not a hunt. It's classified as pest control, land management, whereas hunting is different, with a tag. So if you're hunting deer or elk or caribou or bear or buffalo or whatever, you can't fly. So there's no outfitter that will fly you in a helicopter to an elk base camp. In fact, in Alaska, you can fly fixed wing, but you can't fly and hunt on the same day. So you fly in that night, you can't touch a rifle that day.
Oh, wow.
And on the last day in Alaska, this is Alaska law, but on the last day, if you're flying that day, you can't hunt. At any rate, back to Alaska. So this private company was like, hey, we'll go pick up these two. I think there was two guys that were stranded in a life-threatening situation. So the helicopter went out, picked them up, brought him back, and they got him back, and the state troopers were there, and they brought the guys back with their rifles. And the state troopers were like, you can't bring back the rifles. It's hunting. Like, you can't bring back hunting stuff. And they're like, oh, well, I mean,
right.
Just go pick them up. Picked them up. They stepped on the helicopter with their rifle, and the state fined them, the helicopter company, $10,000 for doing
a good deed.
Yeah, for doing that. So they were like, you know what, state troopers, don't ever call us again. Like, you go take care of your stuff on your own.
Wow.
So that's
you really
crazy.
fined them $10,000.
Yep. Yeah. I've got another quick story I'll share. So there was this time where I was up at the Grand Mesa Lodge. I did a ride. It was a guided ride. I got back. And as soon as I got back, this guy came up and said, "Hey, are you Spencer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I was talking to your employees and they said that you were on search and rescue." And I was like, "Yeah, I help out a little bit. What's up?" He's like, "Well, I was up at the trail at a road called Land's End Observatory, or Mesa Top Trailhead." And I'll pull up a picture of this. But he mentioned that there was a lady up there and he was concerned about her because she was out hiking around. Talked to this guy a little bit more, and I got a little more information. I was like, "So what, why are you worried about her?" And he mentioned that she was going to go out and feed the chipmunks. There's a place out here called Land's End Observatory, and this popular place where there's a bunch of chipmunks that live along this cliff, and people go out here and feed them. And so when he said that, I was like, wait, hold on. You're saying she's walking on the Land's End Road, or she's trying to get to the Land's End Observatory? And he's like, no, she's trying to go to the observatory. And I was like, whoa, that's different. Because this is about 17 miles. So round trip from the Land's End, to the road where it intersects Highway 65 or the trailhead out to the observatory, round trip is more than a marathon. He also mentioned that she had out-of-state plates. Again, it was dark. And so one of the guys that I was with, his name was Shane. He was a client that I'd just taken out for a ride. I turned to him. He was standing right next to me. I was like, "You want to go for another ride?" We got on our sleds, hit this road, full throttle. And we're going like 60, 70 miles an hour the whole way out. And as we got about 2 or 3 miles away from the trailhead, we found her tracks, and it was obvious her tracks. Came up and over this hill, and there she is. We had a conversation with her, and at that point I knew her name because it was we had seen her car, and she had ID on the seat of her car, and so we had discovered who she was. We knew that she was from Arkansas. I'm not going to use her name here, but we'll just say it was Rachel. So I pulled up and I said, "Hey, are you Rachel?" And she was really taken back, obviously, because I knew her name. Like, two people just come up on sleds. And we had this conversation with her where we were like, "What are you doing? Like, some people are worried about you." I explained, I was like, "My name is Spencer. I'm at the Grand Mesa Lodge. And this guy came in and talked to you earlier and was worried because he said that you might be thinking about walking out to the observatory." And she was like, "Well, yeah, I'm going out there." And at this point, it's dark. And she said, "Well, I think I'm getting pretty close." And I was like, "You're not." I was like, "You're not even halfway there." But she was really taken back. She was like, "What?" Because she thought she was, and she'd been hiking at that point for 4 hours. 4 hours at that point, a quarter of the way there. And it was getting dark. And I said, "Well, do you have a GPS?" And she's like, "No, but I've been taking pictures of all the trail markers." And I was like, "Well, that's absolutely worthless. I mean, if a storm comes in and you can't see them, or if it gets dark, like the fact that you have a picture that shows you an intersection is completely worthless." And I said, "Do you have a flashlight?" And she said, "Yeah, I've got a flashlight. My iPhone has a flashlight." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's worthless." I was like, "Did you check the weather before you came?" Like, this is all in the course of our conversation. And she was like, "Well, no, but I think it's going to be good weather." And I was like, "Well, actually, there's a storm coming in. I don't know when it's going to hit, but it's going to hit in the next 24 hours. I mean, it's a pretty big storm. It's going to dump like a foot or two of snow. And if you're here when that happens, I guarantee you will die out here." I mean, if you have 2 feet of snow, you're not going to be able. Right now, she's walking on hard packed ground. And I also mentioned, I was like, the fact that you mentioned you were going to go out and feed the chipmunks in the middle of the winter, I was like, I don't think there's any chipmunks out there. I mean, they do live out there, but I've never seen them in the winter. And she also mentioned, she's like, "Well, I tried to, be safe. And in fact, I brought bear spray with me." It's the middle of the winter. I was like, "The bear spray?" I was like, "There's no bears out here." Nobody's worried about you getting eaten by the bears. They're worried that you're going to freeze to death, not that you're going to get eaten by a bear. The bears are all hibernating along with the chipmunks. At length, we asked her, we were like, do you want to go back? And she's like, yeah, I will go back. And I was like, do you want to ride? She's really apprehensive to go with us. Understandably, I mean, two dudes just show up and they're like, hey, we know your name. And she's like, no, I'll just walk. It'll be okay. I'll turn back. She's been walking for 4 hours at this point, 3 or 4 hours. And so she still had a long way back and it was dark at this point. So we were like, are you sure? Because if we leave, nobody else is coming and you don't have cell reception, so you can't call for help even if you wanted to. Are you sure? We are the last option out of here.
Spencer, based on the evidence so far, she hasn't made one correct decision yet.
I know.
Get on the sled with you?
Yeah. She was from Arkansas. She was a traveling nurse, came here during COVID, didn't understand the mountain, didn't understand her altitude, didn't understand, I mean, she just didn't understand the immensity of the Grand Mesa and the elevation. I mean, you're talking 11,000 foot mountain. It gets a lot of snow and weather can change extremely quickly. So we're like, look, the Spencer Shane Express, it's your last chance out of here. Otherwise, it's 4 hours, and I hope the weather holds for you. Anyways, she did finally agree. She jumped on. We took her back, and we had her back to her car in like 10, 15 minutes. It's really
Those
really
poor
funny.
chipmunks didn't get any food that day.
Yeah. Yeah. She had a bag. So her backpack was full of seed, and it probably weighed 15 pounds. Anyways, the guy I was with, Shane, it was something he said to her. He was like, why? You should go during the day. Like, don't leave at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she was like, well, I work in the day. And he's like, then call in sick. Like, figure out a way.
Well, I'm glad that story ended with a happy ending. And for anybody that has ears to hear, they could take some of those ideas and apply them to their next outing when they go out. Bring GPS, bring light, go there in the morning, not in the afternoon. I mean, it's kind of simple, what you and I would consider common knowledge, but
yeah,
we're avoiding search and rescue at this point,
for
right?
Sure. Anyways, that's all. We'll wrap it up for this one. Spencer at Grand Mesa Lodge. This is Dane on YouTube, Summit Secrets, and that's our video of search and rescue in the state of Colorado. And some of our experiences. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe. If you like it, I've got lots more stories about search and rescue, so we'll talk later.